Hello and welcome to this episode where I'm going to break down the guidance that I channeled this month so that we can talk about what do specific parts of that really mean and how can we work with it in our life, in our business, whatever that might be. So for any of you that don't know me, I'm Bianca. I'm a galactic channel. I bring through guidance from my guides, usually the Galactic Federation of Light, but sometimes it can be any other beings, many beings I bring through. But my strongest, most deep connection is with the Acturians as part of the Galactic Federation. And what I'm going to do in this episode is I'm going to talk to you about the five key topics, if you like, or five key pieces of advice that was shared when I was speaking this month around the guidance that I brought through when I was in channel. So sometimes what I find is the guidance is so beautiful when I bring it through and it's so beautifully shared with us, but it comes from such a place that sometimes it's not always easy to break it down into like, what does that actually mean in my real practical life? What does that actually mean in terms of how I move forwards right now? Like, how do I take that guidance and actually apply it? So I'm going to be also creating videos that help to break it down. So when I bring the guidance through each month, I'm also going to help you break it down so that we can really learn from what is being shared. So I'm going to share with you my 5 key takeaways from that episode where I channeled. And I'm going to link the episode below. So if you haven't watched that episode where I'm live channeling the Galactic Federation, then that is linked below. So if you want to check that out, then you can see that in the link. And this is really to share with you what I felt were the main takeaways from that session. So let's get into it. The first one is, and I'm going to read their words each time I speak this, because I think it's important to read their words and be accurate with that. And then I'll break it down in terms of my interpretation of this. And actually, I'd love to know your interpretation. If you want to add something, if you want to share an experience, if you want to, just share with me how it's resonating. I would love that. So just comment if you feel like you'd like to share. So first, we are in the shift. And I felt very strongly that the message was about stopping waiting. So they said, the Galactic Federation, they said, you are currently in the shift towards a higher timeline. This is a process that you can choose to move with or resist. So I find that really interesting because essentially reflecting on that episode, I think what they were saying is, we're here, we're doing it, it's now. We're not waiting for something to happen, although there might be things happening and we can see there's so many things happening around the world. But in your own life as well, you might be experiencing some significant shifts. We are in the shift. So really this is about recognizing that, understanding we're moving to something very different, really kind of being kind to ourselves and saying we know that this is hard or this can feel challenging at times because we've never done this before, right? We're in a completely new timeline. We're moving towards a world that looks very different to this, but ultimately we are still navigating that. We are in that pivotal moment, that peak moment where we shift to a different experience, but we're not quite there yet, but it's happening. So it's stepping into our power to understand where in our lives are we seeing those patterns? Are we seeing those things playing out? We're not willing to take forwards into this timeline, because as we shift and as we move forward, what I've been very much shared is that it is important for us to also do the work. So we have to look at our life and say, okay, where am I ready to evolve? Where am I willing to see that change? Where am I willing to step into that change? And sometimes that feels a little bit uncomfortable, but actually it's that's going to propel you into that higher timeline. So looking at, I think what they were sharing here is looking at where are you potentially resisting change? Like, is there somewhere you're gripping? Is there something you're holding on to in fear of what might not take its place? But actually, how can you move that into an understanding that in order to move forward, in order to elevate on a personal level, there are things that are going to have to step away from your experience. Now, those can be many things. They're not always work related. They can be business related. They could be clients, but they could also be, people in your life? Are you willing to say no to certain behavior, or are you done with that cycle that you are potentially being presented? And I'm not really an astrologer at all, but I am aware that the astrology right now is also shining a lot of light on those things. So it's not a coincidence for me that I'm also channeling that we are expected to kind of shed these things now. This is the time. So, and I really felt like with this, it was sharing to trust in the chaos, like trust in the things that maybe are taking you a bit left field right now, or are showing up and you think, oh, what's this about? Trusting in that it's showing you something and it's part of the upgrade that you're experiencing. We can't take this stuff with us. We can't bring the baggage along when we elevate. So actually welcoming some of that challenge is key. So that was the first one. Second is your inner world creates your outer reality. So they said your external world is a reflection of your inner world. Come back to yourself. This is a really interesting point, and I sometimes struggle to understand it fully, but I've channeled a lot on this, not just this episode, and they have mentioned this a few times. This is the one where I think my interpretation of what this means is that the external world, there are things out there that we cannot control. They are completely outside of our control. And some of those things we might not like. And when they are so far out of our personal control, it can feel frustrating. And that emotion, you can feel it. You can feel the emotion of what's going on in the external world, particularly if you are sensitive, empathic. You will feel it in your being. But how do we flip that to actually say, okay, I understand there are things in my environment, my external environment, that I can't control. But what are the things that I can control? And one thing you can control is how you respond to the external world. So if there are people in your life that are coming in and creating challenging situations, it's important to look at your response to that versus trying to control somebody else's response or somebody else's behavior. That can be taken on like what I would call a macro level of, take bigger subjects in terms of what's going on in the political arena or what's going on out there in the wider world right now, which feels so dark at times. And it's like, okay, well, we can't necessarily, each one of us do have a role in changing that. But when we focus on the darkness, it's consuming. So where can we focus on those pockets of light within that? So how can we, think about peace? How can we send more peace into the world? How can we respond with love to some of the external things that we are experiencing here right now? And that is incredibly hard. I'm not here telling anyone that is easy. It's not easy. It's challenging for me on a personal level, but that's what I understand. They're really saying when it feels hard, when it feels tough. And I've had my own baptism of fire in this week, where I've literally felt like I'm ready to just go back home. Home for me is the stars. There's moments where I do that, and anyone who's a starseed maybe resonates with that feeling. It's coming back and going, okay, what do I need? What is in within me? Because we can only create the change from the inside out. And that's really important. We create this change from the inside out. So if you need to disconnect from stuff that's making you feel uneasy, do it, because it's more important to disconnect. And if that's what's needed, if you can stay elevated and more of an observer of the external environment and just really focus in on what is your own, what is your personal, what's your personal way you can respond? How can you focus on you, your inner world, your inner self, and come back to you when you are feeling that things are challenging, coming back to yourself? And you can do that with so many things. Meditation for me is so key. Walking in nature, being with my family, being in those moments where you feel that love and joy, and try to ground yourself in love as much as possible, whatever that looks like for you. That might look like, I don't know, that might look like whatever lights you up, reading, going and being with friends, whatever it needs to be in those places. try where you can to turn that feeling into light. So, and then the final thing I want to say about this, and I've kind of focused on this a lot, but I think it is so relevant right now, particularly I'm feeling that. So I'll give you a personal experience. There is so much gold. There is so much gold in what sometimes feels like chaos. And there's so much gold in what sometimes feels like it's challenging you to the absolute max. Now, this week, and I can speak, so for anyone that doesn't know me, I have my own business. Second to this, I have a business in marketing, a marketing agency. And this week, I witnessed myself blow something so far out of proportion that was related to a client. It was interesting to watch. And I was kind of in the moment where I was sort of trapped in my own cycle of chaos. I felt myself and witnessed myself blaming the external environment because, that was the chaos. But actually, what it was my inner chaos, because my response to it was so not elevated. My response to it was so extreme, even for the context of what I was actually experiencing. So when I was able to step back from that and come back to myself and then look at it from an observer perspective and go, what is happening here? Stand back. What is going on? I recognized in that moment that what was playing out was a pattern and an emotion that was linked to a past event. And I was almost turning something that was happening now into that past event. So I was almost experiencing my current experience from the past. And actually, when I looked at it really objectively, that wasn't what was happening. It was my response to it that was creating it. And it's so hard to look at yourself in that way, but it's so powerful when you do, because now I'm looking at that situation from a completely different lens, and I am now able to move forwards differently. So, things with that client then start to shift and move forwards because I'm not contributing to that chaos. I'm actually coming from my own a higher level of my own awareness. So I just wanted to speak about that because I think it's really easy to speak about it from a really wide perspective, but I think it helps when I share examples. So that was an example for me that came up this week. I'd love to know if anyone else has had a similar experience over this wild eclipse period. So that was number 2. Number 3 is to limit the distractions and amplify your light. So again, this is coming back to, I won't go too much into this because I kind of semi-covered this in the last one, but limiting those distractions. It is important at this time, this is the GFL, it is important at this time to limit the external distractions and look for the light within. Shine it brighter than it's ever been shone before. So this is just, like what I was just saying, like limiting the exposure to anything that you feel is taking you into places that maybe are not as light as you'd like, or where you feel yourself drawn in, like standing back and looking for those moments of light where they exist in this world, focusing on where there are pockets of light. And I just want to speak another example here because I think it's helpful. I was having a conversation with a friend recently we were talking about pregnancy, and I have 2 young girls, and I'm based in the UK. So anyone in the UK understands we have challenges with our healthcare system. I think that is probably quite universal, but particularly there are challenges here with our health system, and particularly when it comes to maternity care and the care and the integrity that women are treated in our NHS, in our healthcare system. However, at the start of that conversation, it was very easy to focus and dwell on what's wrong with it, what's all the things, all the stats, all the challenging aspects of that system. So easy. But what I was reflecting on as we were speaking, and I've reflected on it post as well, is we then turned the conversation into, we were speaking about this incredible independent midwife who is doing the most incredible things. And if I can remember who that is, I'll ask my friend. I will link that individual who is shining absolute bright light into a system that needs it, that needs light, that needs hope, that needs positivity and a new way of operating. And that must be so challenging to be that light in the dark like that. But that's it, and we turn the conversation from what was so wrong with the current context, to how can we, actually we're seeing some incredible things, incredible people doing amazing work, making the change, being the change. And that is key to how we shift from where we are into what my guide's term and many others out there, this new earth experience or new human experience, whatever you want to call it, as we elevate ourselves into a higher experience from the 3D to the 5, what we are the ones, we are responsible for making that change. It's got to come through us. And so if we have more incredible individuals like that particular independent midwife, we are going to see genuine change happen. And that's it. We're the change. So accepting that sometimes it's dark and it's hard. And believe me, I really resonate with that. I feel it. But also remembering that we are the ones that can create the change, and focusing, if it's not even you, focusing on the stories and the incredible people out there that are doing so much work to bring so much light into darkness, light into dark spaces, like that example in the NHS. I think is the way through. And I think that's what they're asking us to do. It's not about getting drawn in and spiraling down with the distraction that's out there. It's coming at it from an elevated place to say, let's break through it. Let's build something new. Let's create something that's totally different. And we, as a collective, as a community, are here to create those changes. So that is, I think, a really powerful one. Number 4. So this one is your individual elevation creates collective transformation. So they say, Galactic Federation, each one of you is shining your light and it lights up the other. So it behaves as a beacon, perhaps a light guiding the ship home. I love that. I love this idea of being the lighthouse. And that resonated so much for me when I was listening back to that channeled guidance. And actually I've used it since in other things that I've been doing because I found it so beautiful, actually, beautiful way of explaining it. Sometimes it feels really frustrating because if you are standing in your power, in your light, it's not always reciprocated, and that's not always mirrored in your environment, right? We're not always experiencing that, even though we're coming at it from a really, really powerful, true, honest, authentic place. It's not always reciprocated out there in the world. And then that can feel really hard. This is where community is important. And it doesn't have to be community that is necessarily like pre-organized. Community comes from finding other people that can light you up too. Being around those individuals that can help to elevate you, because when you are in that elevated place, and I think this is so powerful, when your personal growth allows you to stand in your power, to stand in your elevated and to shine your light so strongly that shines a light in others. And we all know that if there's a challenging situation or a room and the energy of that room feels off, somebody who comes in with a light shining bright can transform that room in a second. That's how powerful we are. So that's what they really want to say, is each one of us is acting as a light for the other. So if one of us is feeling it's hard, I'm ready to throw in the towel, if somebody else can be that light, it helps to guide the other one. And we might all need to be the light at different moments for each other, right? But you are here to shine your light. You are here to be all of you. You are here to be lit up in this world. And when you do that, it helps others shine too. So do not be fearful of shining your light. Don't let anybody try to dim it down. And don't let anybody tell you that by shining your light when things are challenging out there, that it is contributing in any other way than positively. Because when we all shine our light, when we all operate from that place, we bring each other along. We are guiding the way home. I love that. I think it's beautiful. So that was number 4. And then number 5, I think, is really, really powerful. And so this is create from the heart and create from truth. So the GFL, they say, asking yourself, am I truly living through my heart center the truth? Am I truly living from what lights me up and what guides me home? This is really powerful. So what was coming through for me when I was connecting with this is the remembrance that the safety is within us. The safety is always within you. And it's we've kind of been conditioned, or we haven't kind of, we definitely have been conditioned to think the safety is what's outside of us. So our external world creates the safety, but actually it's our inner world that creates the safety. We are the safety. So it's important not to look outside for that safety, because when you really find yourself going and heading towards your true mission, purpose, and reason for being here, is when you follow the joy and the passion that you experience. So and that's the light. If you feel excited, if you feel, you know, really, really drawn to be doing something, follow that heart. Your heart is lighting the way. Your heart is lighting the way. And that is very different to doing something for the sake of the safety that it's going to bring you. And we're moving to a time whereby it's important to take those decisions from your heart and not from maybe what feels the safe option, because sometimes it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't have to be massive things. It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to quit my job tomorrow and walk out. Now, it might be, and I've definitely done that in my life, and it was the best decision I ever made in my context. But in your context, it might not be that. It might be just finding that time for the art or the beautiful creative thing that you are bringing through, the pottery, the painting, the dance, and the expression that you want to bring out in the world, and that lights you up. It might be music. I don't know what it is for you. For everyone, it's different, right? And sometimes it's not one thing, and it shouldn't be one thing, right? Because we are multidimensional. But it's finding that light and expressing it and going towards that, living your life through that place, and taking decisions from the heart. So if your heart is telling you that something is not for you anymore, or maybe it never was, listen to that and take the steps to move towards what it is that does light you up, even if it's baby steps. And that's really important, because sometimes all it takes is baby steps. But that's got to be, we've got to take that action. The universe can help us to take that action, but sometimes that can be, in a way that sort of slips the rug under, or something will happen that will redirect us. But we are often being shown well before those moments to make a move in a different direction. It just feels scary, and it's that safety. It's that sort of human construct of feeling like we've got to operate from a safe place, and therefore we can't do the thing that really lights us up. But the truth is, you always can move forwards with what lights you up. You just need to do it in a way that allows you to be, I would say, to hold your nervous system so that you can allow all the synchronicities, all of the amazing, you know, just moments in life that will just show up for you as you start taking those steps to fall into place. And sometimes that takes time, sometimes it's immediate. You just don't know. But it's following the signs, synchronicities, and listen to your heart, and moving to a place where that's how you operate always, and letting go of taking choice or making choices through fear. So asking yourself, am I taking this choice through love? Or is this choice through something I really want to do in my heart? Or is this a choice I'm making through fear? Is it feeling heavy? Does that decision feel heavy, or does that decision feel light? Does it make me feel expanded, or does it make me feel contracted? And those are your clues to which direction to take. It's not always logical, I will add. So connecting deeply with yourself, with your inner guidance, with your wisdom, so that you can avoid essentially taking decisions that are going to take you off path, because you will be directed towards the path, and the path always feels good in your body, and in your body is the best place to recognize where that is. And I can speak to maybe versions of me gone by where I would often look to external validation for my choices. So I would ask a lot of people, like, I'm thinking about doing this, should I do that? Because it felt difficult for me to be confident to stand behind my choices. But that is often, I now understand, has taken me completely in the wrong direction, because I've known deep in my heart what the truth of what I want to do is, and it doesn't make sense to anyone else but me, usually. So if I'm asking somebody else, quite often they would say to me, well, I'm not sure that's a decision I would take. And there would be a logic behind some of the things that would be shared with me. But sometimes it's not really logical. It's true in your heart, and that's all you need to know. So remembering to come back to yourself, try to limit the amount you ask other people, and try to be led by you. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. That's the final thing. So I just want to end there. Those are the 5 key pieces of wisdom that I've pulled out of that channeling session. There's many more in there. And that's my reflection of them. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'd love to know how you've experienced this. And if you love this, please hit the subscribe button and join me for more videos.